Yo, hey everybody, welcome to our Midas Letter RAW show for this Thursday, May 27th. Wow. I'm here with my good friend Polsky Gorky Sloppy Ed Molesky as usual. And how are you?
I'm fine. Well, that was quite an intro there.
I'm feeling a little exuberant today.
A little energy?
To do energy, with my
energy pills?
Accoutrement.
Yeah, you're pretty dapper.
Of course, my glasses. Oh. Anyways, we have a great show for you today. Two guests. Bruce Campbell joins us. He's the president and portfolio manager of Stone Castle Asset Management, a regular fixture on our show. He's going to tell us about what's going on in the cannabis industry. And then we're going to have Dale Cooper join us for the first time. Dale Cooper is a partner with Deloitte Canada in the risk advisory group of the cannabis compliance entity within Deloitte. And he is just a fountain of knowledge when it comes to what's going on in the cannabis industry. What else we got? Well, we're going to talk about the usual. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. Probably talk about Graphene Manufacturing Group. Woo! And, of course, our sponsor, Voxtur Analytics. Real estate at the speed of light. We have shares. We have options. We are conflicted and not to be trusted when it comes to this company, but it is going to reorganize the entire real estate industry, and it is doing so right now.
And at the speed of light.
At the speed of light. It's going to take transactions in real estate that used to take 3 months, multiple payments totaling thousands of dollars to various entities, including title insurance, legal opinion, appraisals. They're going to put it all on one platform. It's already there, VoxturAnalytics.com. And you are going to be able to conclude a home transaction, including mortgage origination, title insurance, tax verification, all within hours for a fraction of the cost.
You should be one of their spokesmen.
I am one of their spokesmen. That's why they gave me the options. Jesus Christ, Edward. Anyways, let's kick things right off, right away with our first guest, Bruce Campbell. Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers, viewers, traders, and investors. My guest today is a regular feature on our show. Bruce Campbell joins us. He's the president and portfolio manager of Stone Castle Investment Management. Bruce, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, it's so good to see you again, Bruce. How's the pandemic holding up for you?
Well, I mean, I'd like it to just be over, but I think everyone's probably in the same boat, right? So it looks like we're getting closer. I mean, obviously the numbers out of the U.S. are promising. Hopefully we can follow through here in Canada soon.
Bruce, I see that you recently became the Chief Investment Officer for Cannabis Growth Opportunity Corporation. Can you tell us a bit about how that all came about and what exactly you're doing with that company?
Yeah, I've been involved with that right from the get-go, but they just recently did a bunch of changes as far as officers and things like that. So when he originally started the company, that was the position I was sort of going to be in, and then they had it as a different position of public portfolio manager, and then they've just recently changed it again. So there's been a few changes going on there with new management, but effectively it's a publicly traded company. And we go and invest in the cannabis sector, both on the private side and on the public side. Stone Castle manages all the public portion of that portfolio.
Okay. And so what has been the performance of the portfolio in this last year?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a year ago to today, things have been quite strong. If you look at it, kind of in the last 6 months, they've been really strong. So we really saw the cannabis market bottom in kind of that September timeframe of last year. Started to build a bit of a base, and then really in November, December, just really took off. We had the high, back in the middle of February. It's pulled back a bit from that high, and just been sort of consolidating here in sort of the last few months.
Mm-hmm. And so what are your top holdings in the portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the top holdings, we've got sort of a number of different areas. So Vibe Growth, which is one out of California. They have a dispensary operation as well as cultivation and manufacturing. So we're one of our top picks as far as size goes. Curaleaf, we continue to own a good size position in Curaleaf in our funds. And that's obviously one of the biggest and been executing quite well. Vext is another. They're in Arizona, again, another smaller producer. And, they're really, both with Vext and Vibe, they really trade under what the market recognizes as far as valuation for a lot of the bigger ones. And then, sort of continuing on with that theme, Lowell Farms is another. They're a producer in California, and they're mostly in cultivation. They're doing a little bit of manufactured product, but that's more recent for them because they did this merger between Indus and Lowell. Lowell had all the products, and Indus had all the cultivation, and they joined those two together. So, yeah, those are some of the bigger ones in the positions in the funds.
Oh, great. So I'm curious, most of the asset managers that I've been speaking to in the cannabis sector over the last year have almost entirely been focused on the US MSOs. So I'm curious as to what attracted you to GTEC, who is decidedly Canadian, and how are they managing to outperform? I'm assuming they're performing well for you. How are they managing to outperform other Canadian names?
Yeah, what we've seen, there's kind of two things going on there. One is in the US, those numbers have been really stellar. I mean, we've seen, revenue growth of, kind of 200% over the last couple of years, and EBITDA growth that in a lot of cases is even higher. In Canada, it's been a completely different story. If you look at the large LPs in Canada, their numbers really haven't been that strong. They've seen some revenue growth, not as much as you would have expected considering the growth in the Canadian market, but their EBITDA has really not been that strong at all. And in a lot of cases, it's still negative. But what we see as a trend is really two things in Canada: the value trend, which has been part of the reason that the large LPs haven't been able to really perform very well. And then the second trend is really premium. And so a lot of these premium producers, and in this case, GTEC, they have a product where they're getting a premium price. So they're getting, kind of in that $13 to $15 per gram versus the value, kind of in that $3.50 to $5.50 range. So they're getting a lot more for it, and yet their inputs to grow it aren't significantly different than what it would be to grow the value brand or value cannabis. So their margins are a lot higher. And right now, most of the premium companies, like somebody like GTEC, as soon as they can produce a crop, it goes out to the provinces, and it's pretty much off the shelf. And then, people are waiting again for that next crop to come in.
Okay, so the practice of targeting the premium cannabis consumer has actually paid off for them.
It has, yeah. And I mean, that's where, obviously if you go sort of back to the legacy black market, that was, there was obviously a segment there that, people would notoriously go to. That term BC Bud obviously came from that, right? There was a, sort of different strain and different varieties that people specifically wanted from their dealer. Well, now obviously as that black market's going away, it's the same, that cannabis connoisseur is really wanting that premium brand. And now, they can obviously do it probably with even more consistency in these smaller operations than a big guy could, or in a lot of cases the black market could.
Sure. To what extent is the black market still having a negative impact on Canadian retailer sales? Is it as strong as it used to be, or is it actually incrementally eroding as a result of the existence of the licensed market and probably law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different factors that are going on there. Probably the biggest, though, from what the feedback that we get, is really the pricing. So, when the Canadian cannabis market first went legal, you were looking at sort of $8 to $10 per gram by time, the government had their taxes and the producers got their money. And that's now gone down. You're seeing, sort of in that 350 to 550 range now, which competes a lot closer to the black market. And so as a result, from a convenience factor, people are now, looking at the legal market versus the black market. At the same time, there's been a whole new consumer that have come in as well. People who probably hadn't used cannabis in a number of years. That's probably more so on some of the extracted product than necessarily on dried flower. So it's a combination of the two. And then, law enforcement, I don't think has really stepped things up as much as they probably could have or needed to. But, just as the evolution of pricing comes out, it's just easier for people to gravitate towards the legal market.
Sure. And is that contrasted with what's happening in the United States very much? Is there a black market impact on the retailers in the U.S.?
It depends on where it is. State by state, it certainly can. So California looks very similar to what it did in Canada. So, California is an unlimited license market, had a huge black market prior to them going rec legal. And, it took a lot of time, and it still is a big part of their market is the black market. And it's taking time to get, the legal market up sort of to speed as far as cultivation capacity goes, but also, sort of shutting down those black market dispensaries. Because much like, was out here in BC, there was tons of black market dispensaries. Same thing in California. That's starting to go away now, thanks to law enforcement and regulation. And the legal market is starting to grow and really come on strong, both in Canada and the US, though. I think that there's a legal market that probably serves, overseas markets, right? And then state by state in the US, it depends on where you go. So, some of the states are very strong now on the legal sales, and they, in a large part, probably didn't have a ton of domestic black market cultivation. They were really kind of importing from California.
Interesting. So then do you expect that the improving climate in the United States with the Biden-Harris administration is going to result in a national uncriminalization, if not full regulation?
Well, certainly that's the expectation. Just the timing is the thing that's up in the air, right? Does that happen this year? Does it happen, this term for the president? Most people expect that it will happen this term at some point in time. And then the discussion really centers around what level will that be? Will it be just strictly a decriminalization? Will it be a federal legalization? Does the FDA get involved? Do they reclassify the drug in the US so that it is federally legal? Is it still left, kind of the States Act where each state is in charge of their own regulation, or is it become, fully federally legal? The one thing that we know, though, is that, the tax revenue that each of these states is looking at, and the potential is huge. In some states, you've now seen where cannabis has overtaken alcohol, Colorado being one of those examples. And of course, the tax revenue is huge. With everything that's happened with COVID, they're going to be constantly looking for ways to increase that tax revenue. And, you just look at the New Jersey, New York example. New Jersey, voted to have it federally, or not federally, state legal on a recreational basis in the election. And then it wasn't too long after that New York, moved ahead with their own legislation to make it legal. And that's just a function of, if they had it legal in New Jersey, but not in New York, people would just, gone across a bridge or a tunnel, got their cannabis, paid their tax in New Jersey, and then came back into New York to consume it. And New York would have been out of all that tax revenue.
Sure. Well, Bruce, that's a fantastic update. We're going to leave it there for now. I'm going to come back to you in due course, and we'll have this conversation again. I wish you the best. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You bet. Bye for now. Bruce is always a fountain of knowledge. I was really pleased to hear him being so interested in our good friend Mike's GTEC Holdings.
I had a chat with Mike.
Did you? What did he have to say?
Well, he's kind of playing it kind of quiet, but I guess they're having trouble keeping certain products in stock.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I
And
mean,
and there's one brand in particular. Can I say it?
you can say it.
It's called Black Market, BLKMKT.
Ooh, that sounds attractive.
Black Market, and can't keep it on the shelf.
Really? Must be
That's-
pretty good. Have you tried it?
Can't get it.
Yeah, right. If,
So
Mike, if you're listening, we would like to try
Mike,
some of this Black
Mike,
Market.
you dog, you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Where's our
hey,
care package?
We should mention the young fellow recently got married.
Who did?
Mike Blady.
No. He's
Yes,
off the market?
He's off the market.
Oh, so many
He's
broken
off-
hearts now.
Well, you know,
Yeah. Anyways,
some
and,
winners and some losers.
yes, always, always.
He's got another dog. Anyway,
Another dog.
you know,
Enough about him.
yeah, let's.
Yeah, this
where's
is a
our
show
options?
about
Where's our
Mike.
options?
Yeah, where's our, never mind that. I'll
Yeah.
take the Black Market
Okay,
care package.
okay.
Give me the care package.
Okay, let's
any
find
day.
out. Let's pursue this product.
Yes. Ed, this week we saw copper futures spike again, lumber futures spiked again,
Yeah.
and the 10-year rate has also started to move higher.
Yeah.
Just in the last couple of sessions. Bitcoin has recovered a lot of lost ground. And so the volatility across asset prices, if I was a betting man, I would say it's indicative of instability across the whole system. What's going on? Give me the lowdown.
Look at you got this unbelievable mountain of debt.
Debt.
And you got all this cash.
Cash.
And you got this discrepancy between haves and have-nots getting wider all the time. And the foot's on the accelerator, and they keep printing and blah, blah, blah. And yet, you know, there's a feeling in the world that, you know, big entities like China, Russia, they want to, you know, move away from the dollar as being the preeminent, you know, the reserve currency
Of the world.
and it's
Yes.
changing because the U.S.'s dominance is diminishing in the world.
Well, do you think that's because they have their foot to the mat on the quantitative easing pedal?
No.
Interesting story by our good friend Wolf Richter at wolfstreet.com. He published an interesting expose on the fact that the Fed was actually retiring quantitative easing,
Yeah.
tapering effectively through the reverse repo facility, which they last week just retired $320 billion, while still printing $120 billion per month.
So they really didn't print.
Well, print is an archaic term to say the least.
Yeah, but they're restricting their balance sheet surreptitiously. Is that
Surreptitious, they're tapering
tape?
while pretending not to be tapering.
No taper.
No taper
Taper.
here.
Taper.
There's no taper going on. We're taper free. Anyways, and you know why
You
they're
know
doing
you know what
that?
they call the guy with that
Taper for
the guy in the house that does the thing with the drywall, the taper.
the taper, yeah. That's supposed to be a joke.
Anyway,
Anyways, let's take a quick look at the charts here. So here's the lumber futures front month contract. I've got to take my glasses off because I can't actually see.
are we 1,300, 1,400?
1310. So I stand corrected. Lumber futures are down from their all-time high. They did take a quick
No,
run up to,
lumber. Yeah, had a good correction.
yeah, went up, but it ran back up to 1507 earlier in the week.
Yeah.
And is now back sucking hind tit down here at 1310.
You know what? And I think the lumber could be turned on a little faster than, say, iron ore. Or
They just got to slaughter a bunch of trees
I know.
and just run them through the mill.
I'm such a sap.
Anyways, copper futures, big jump today, like up
Yeah.
3%, 467. What does that mean for copper? Is that because of the communist sort of
You know what
rumblings
happened?
going
There
on
was
down there?
there's a union. Two of the largest mines in Chile have decided to go on strike. I think on next Monday.
Really?
Yeah, that came out. Yeah.
Well, that would explain the spike in
Well,
copper futures prices.
but that goes to show you that as the price goes up, you'd think more good things can happen, more supply comes, and now we're seeing it is causing more problems.
Right.
You know, it's like people get greedy,
Yes.
you know, and then all hell breaks loose.
Feckless greed. That's a bon mot right there.
Oh,
feckless.
feckless. I've been feckless in my day.
Don't feckless
With
me.
money.
Don't feckless around. You've been feckless with money? You're pretty feckless generally, aren't you? Actually, we better not go down that
Let's not, you know.
Anyways.
I've been known to feck less.
Yeah. Especially as you age, I'm sure. little
You know,
little problem keeping that top sail up.
Bon mot.
Bon mot. Anyways, so what else we got to look at here?
Yeah.
Want to talk quickly about the Voxtur Analytics price action. Voxtur changed its symbol in the U.S. to VXTRF, which didn't really change the volume profile in the U.S. trading.
Right.
So it's been hovering at this level, which I think is probably representative of the fact they did that financing at 70 cents back in March.
Yeah.
And so when the hold comes off that in July, and the stock still remains strong like burr, I think the chances are pretty high that, well, plus there's another quarter coming out.
I think what we're seeing is another example of when there's been a big spike in the price, there has to be a period following that of digestion.
Digestion.
Consolidation, if you will.
Digestion.
Constipation.
How's your digestion? Yes, digestion. Right.
In other words,
the market needs to rebalance. Well, there's almost 400 million
There's a
shares
lot
out.
of different, there's a different dynamic now. It broke in a new world. It's been revalued.
Yeah.
And now it's about to get revalued again in our minds.
In our minds?
But we may be wrong.
We could be wrong.
But
Probably not, though. Just saying. Were we wrong about GMG? No!
Whoa.
No.
Yeah, that's been a...
That's been a hell of a performer. Let's take a look at that chart here. So we saw it run up and touch just $4 this week. And it's under pretty severe pressure. It blew through the Bollinger Bands. The RSI was above 90.
It was screaming, sell some paper here.
That's right.
And I
This
think,
is the high for now.
Did I point that out, maybe?
Well, after the fact.
No, I
in
think...
the rearview mirror, you're like, oh, look,
I
it's
said,
falling.
okay, so you only get 360, 370. And maybe tomorrow you buy it at 260.
You shorted it, didn't you?
No, I did not.
You didn't?
No,
I'm not going to get caught
I'm
with your pants
going to
down
start
this
buying
time.
here very soon.
Are you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You're going to back up the truck?
I'm going to wait one more day, 1 or 2 more days, I think.
Really? What if you miss out?
Well,
Then
so what? So what?
Do you have FOMO?
What if I miss out?
Do you suffer from that's
Not anymore.
That's an unFOMO-esque attitude right there.
I don't give a shit.
Well, I can tell.
You-
You're at that age.
Yeah.
You feck less and you don't give a shit. Turkey tree and a turd economic performance right there. Anyways, so let's see what the Wall Street Journal has to
Jesus.
say for itself today.
Jesus.
The usual diatribe. I thought it was interesting that the conversation in the Financial Times featured an interview with Stanley Druckenmiller, who basically opined that the U.S. was in fact under imminent threat of losing its status as the default global reserve currency.
Yeah, you sent me there, yeah.
And interestingly enough, we've sort of been, it's been a main theme of the alternative financial commentary circuit, as I now bill ourselves, the alternative financial commentary circuit, mind you, not the mainstream. And they're just starting this conversation now, and it's like, that's so 2016, 2014 even. Well,
maybe they're observing a little at a slower rate. You know what I've come to the conclusion? When these big changes take place, they take a long time. It's like the United States dominance in the financial world is like a monster ship in the middle of a monster ocean,
backed up by a monster military.
You know, to turn it around, it's going to take
a full army.
Well,
a navy.
You know, like the fall of the Roman Empire didn't take place. It took place over hundreds of years.
Are you saying that the U.S. is now Roman?
Roman
around?
Roaming around?
Roaming around the ocean?
It's untethered.
Yeah. Do you know that boat that got stuck in the Suez Canal? It's been seized by the Egyptian government and is being held for $1 billion payment, which the owners of the Evergreen are not quite willing to make.
Really?
Yes. I guess the ship's not quite worth $1 billion. They're like, yeah, you want $1 billion? Keep the boat.
Yeah.
Keep the boat. We don't like it anymore anyways.
Did you see Amazon is buying MGM?
Really?
Amazon, I think they said it was the second largest transaction. They bought it for $8.5 billion, and MGM owns the James Bond franchise.
Oh.
And the James Bond franchise, it just gets, these movies they make, they cost...
billions.
Well, I don't
millions.
know. You know, I heard
tens
that
of millions.
this guy, his next James Bond movie is going to make something like $150, $200 million.
And I hear the next James Bond is going to be cast, Jeff Bezos is going to play James Bond.
Well,
that would explain it.
There you go. And who's going to stop him?
Nobody will cast me, so I'm going to buy the studio.
I'm going to cast. Okay. We're going to audition now, and Okay, I'll go first.
That's right. Everybody else can go home now. The role has been filled. Thank you all for coming. Yeah,
Well,
no,
anyway,
why does well, I guess probably their video division is suffering. Have you,
You know,
watched anything on Amazon
$8
Prime?
billion, for a company that's worth close to it's like a spit in the bucket. It's like 2% of their value or some stupid thing. It's like
A spit in the wine barrel.
not
And why
even
do we
that,
have
or
these whiskey
0.2%,
barrels here?
0.2%.
Have you stuck your nose in there?
Why? What?
Your nose.
I thought you said
Your
hose.
nose.
I thought you said hose.
No.
Just-
Anyways, do you know why we have these whiskey barrels here? Because you have to drink the contents before the show is over.
Ooh. Ooh.
No, that's for the next show. Anyways,
Well, I brought my flask with me today.
did you?
Is this my flask?
Yeah, that's your flask. Pretty sure that's how you got here. I saw you roll in on that.
Ooh.
Did you hear that Joe Biden has requested Congress to investigate the source of the pandemic within 2 months, identify the source of the virus? And I thought that was already clear. I thought it was those two. Well, actually, now we can't speculate without straying into.
You don't want it. We don't want to get an international.
Politically
I don't need
incorrect.
any phone calls tonight.
Well,
or
and I
knocks
don't want to
on
get
the-
capped in the
Hello?
ass. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? There's
Right.
8 guys in suits
Hey,
outside.
why were you talking
Oh.
about the Chinese that way, sir? Come with us right now.
Yeah. No.
No, you won't need your suitcase. One-way ticket.
Yeah.
But what do you think is behind that? You know, like, it's like, so, Trump made a lot of hay out of calling it the China virus, which only appealed to the sort of radical mindset of his base. And now Biden seems to be taking up that challenge a little bit more delicately, a little bit more diplomatically, by demanding somebody investigate the source of the coronavirus without pointing any fingers.
No pointing.
Well, I thought it was pretty clear that the coronavirus came out of Wuhan. So what's with the investigation? Like, oh, maybe it came from somewhere else? Maybe the British actually did it. You know, the last time I had coronavirus, I had...
The last time you had it.
The last time. It was the first time. But the last thing we did is we had dim sum in Camden Town in London before we jumped on a plane.
Did you have very much, or you just have some?
We had a lot. We
Or
ate a
you
lot.
just have some.
No, it was a dim sum. Yes, we had some. Had some, want
I had
some.
to explain that one. That's
Yeah, I
like a
see
dope.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was
Well,
just so witty.
You know what? There's no way we can ever know what goes behind closed doors at the highest echelons of politics.
Why not?
Because it's behind closed doors.
Yeah, but you can tell
With cameras?
by the look on their face when they come out of that
No,
bedroom.
you cannot. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know.
I know
They
what
could be
they're
playing cards for all you know.
Here, I'll see you
Here.
Greenland,
I
and
don't
you
know.
take the Philippines. We're going to keep the South China Sea, and no, that wouldn't surprise me. I think it happens on the
Most of us that don't know what goes on in our own mind. How are we ever going to know what goes on in someone else's mind?
So you're saying you don't generally know what's going on in your own mind? That would explain a lot of things, actually, Edward.
I didn't think I needed to come out and say it.
Now you're coming out at this late date. Jesus.
I don't know.
Anyways, our next guest is well-versed in the cannabis arts, as we shall call them. In fact, as a result of this interview, I have actually engaged Deloitte to come and advise me on the process and procedure for obtaining a microcultivation license for my site here at the farm. So
Deloitte's aren't cheap.
Deloitte's not cheap?
Deloitte's not cheap.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
I'm sure they're going to be very reasonable, being Deloitte.
And maybe you get a little.
But did you know
advertising.
Deloitte bought Cannabis Compliance Inc.? Remember CCI? We had those guys on the show a few times.
Deloitte bought them.
Deloitte bought them. They're serious about the cannabis biz.
They must have a lot of pot smokers at partner level.
Well, I'm not going to
Well,
speculate
it's not.
on
I'm
that.
not pointing any fingers. No fingers pointing.
Yeah, so much for Deloitte coming to help us out. Anyways, Dale Hooper is is a partner in the risk advisory section as it pertains to the cannabis industry. And here's that conversation for your titillation. G'day there, Midas Letter subscribers and viewers. Today my guest is Dale Hooper. He's a partner with the Risk Advisory Department at Deloitte Canada. He was formerly the CEO of Cannabis Compliance Inc. before Deloitte acquired them. Dale, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
You bet. Hey Dale, tell me about how Deloitte became interested in cannabis compliance, how you came to be part of cannabis compliance. How did that whole thing unfold? Because that's a fascinating story to me.
No, thank you. I started my career in packaged goods, so CPG, and spent some time there. And I met the founder of CCI and fell in love with the cannabis industry back in early 2018. And at the time, Deloitte was way out in front of everybody else, really looking at the industry from what it was going to do from a consumer perspective, and an operational perspective from what was going to happen economically in the business space. And during the year of 2019, we connected, and we had a great opportunity to join the firm back in November of 2019. And from there on, we've been very focused globally, not just in Canada, but globally on the cannabis space, working in Canada and in 20 countries around the world.
Sure. So does Deloitte offer the service of helping companies that want to get into the cannabis industry get licensed and organized? Is that what the business is?
So CCI did that right from the start. So early in 2017, I think we've now worked on over 175 license holders, helping them get licensed. There's still more in the queue. And at Deloitte, we take it even farther. We've moved upstream into helping them get their operations set up, get their quality management systems working, learning, ensuring and helping them grow. And now, as the industry's matured, we're helping them think through commercially where the best opportunities are from a consumer and a product perspective, but also helping them shape their operations to meet those consumer needs and the trends that are going on in the industry, as well as just being competitive, right? Just being competitive with, with costs and what's happening.
Sure. So Deloitte publishes a sort of industry state of the nation report, and your most recent one, they typically can have insights into all of the consumer habits and preferences and whatnot. So tell us about what the most recent published report looks like and what are the key findings in it.
No, thank you. I mean, the consumer report was our first deep dive since the introduction of 2.0 products. So the vapes and beverages and edibles, and so we looked at the final quarter of 2020 to really understand, a year into those products hitting the market, what was going on with consumers. And here simply is what we found at a high level. The marketplace is now really maturing. You've got your existing users who have been with cannabis and used cannabis since prior to legalization, and you've got now people returning back to the market, that hadn't tried it and now starting to come back into the marketplace. And then you've got the new users, coming into the category, and those two, the returning users and the new users, represented 40% of consumers that we spoke to in that quarter. And what's really interesting is, as you start to look at what's happening, you're starting to see the existing users really very flower focused. They love to try new products in the cannabis space. They're real, they really understand the space. And then you've got the new users who predominantly don't want combustible products and predominantly come in for more wellness type reasons, CBD being very important, but sleep, anxiety, self-medication opportunities. And then you've got these folks returning that kind of split. They kind of go either way, right? They come back into it after, enjoying it in their youth, or they come back into it as, hey, I understand cannabis. Now I'm going to use it for more of a wellness benefit. And that, to me, really just speaks to that. While in the short term, the biggest business opportunities are with those existing users. They're 75% of the volume of the category, and they try everything. But in the long term, it's really going to be the new users that are going to shape, the future of the industry, and because that's where the mass is, right? That's where where it's going to come from. So, and the last thing I'd say is, as a company, really trying to think about how do you win the short term while preparing for the long term through your innovation pipeline, your operations, your partnerships is really key.
I use CBD every day. I do a 50 milligram dose of a CBD isolate with some terpenes mixed in. And that's because I found, thanks to the evolution of the cannabis industry, that CBD, as you said, really helps me have a fantastic sleep. I mean, that's the most unbelievable treasure about it. I sleep like a baby, but it also does things like leaves you relaxed and less prone to fly off the handle at things. It just levels you right out. So I've been a huge fan of it. In fact, I just got a license to grow up to 463 plants in a given year from Health Canada, so that I can get my own CBD directly because it's expensive. Now, the problem is that CBD is only available in the medical realm in Canada, at least in terms of being marketed as a nutritional supplement. Is that going to change in Canada anytime soon? Will CBD be available over the counter and be able to be sold as a nutritional supplement that aids sleep and anxiety and all those things?
So it's a great question. And so Canada is one of the few markets, many markets in the world, CBD and THC are separated, right? They are thought of and regulated differently. And so in Canada, yes, there's dialogue happening with Health Canada, and you've heard the term natural health product. The term for CBD they've talked about is cannabis health products, and there's conversations going on right now to separate THC and CBD from a regulatory perspective to enable us to have it distributed not just in dispensaries or licensed facilities, that they can go to our local pharmacy and grocery store. And to your point, when that happens, I think that's where the mass opportunity for people to try the product. The last thing that will happen with that is also the focus, which it is in some jurisdictions around the world. What are the claims allowed, so to speak, right? What exactly are you able to say? And as we know with natural health products, those are regulated. So, but that'll all evolve as it moves on. And to your point, more and more consumers are just hearing word of mouth about the benefits of CBD and are trying it now. You can only imagine what will happen when the idea of cannabis health products hit the market here in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of the the mainstream news tends to project a cautionary, don't believe everything you hear about CBD message, and that's fair enough. I mean, a degree of caution is warranted. I'm sure everybody's not built identically, and not everybody's going to have my experience with CBD where I'm at the point now where it's just like, if I have sore muscles, I rub CBD oil on it. If I get a poison ivy outbreak, I hit it with apple cider vinegar and then CBD because it seems to have some effect. There's so many instances where I've used CBD for, like, even on my dog that used to have this skin allergy. Since I've been giving her drops of CBD in the allergy season, she has no fur problems anymore. So it's kind of like I can empathize with the mainstream to say, okay, don't believe everything you hear. But I also would take exception to the fact that don't be so quick to criticize that which you haven't tried for yourself, because the anecdotal evidence, at least for me, is so overwhelming that, when people say, oh, is that true? You shouldn't believe everything you hear. I say, well, actually, if you don't listen to me, because I think it does so much more than what even the most enthusiastic advocates for it say. So, yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. I was in London in 2019, and it was shocking to me, coming from Canada, seeing that in London there was CBD of every configuration on the shelves in every drugstore available without a prescription. And it had been that way for a number of years. So in the Eurozone, which I guess the UK is no longer part of, but it was interesting that CBD has always been regarded as not in the same category as THC and was always allowed as a dietary supplement without any disclosures, warnings, and not needing to make any health claims because the people of Europe are so familiar with it. Anyways, do you think that the future of cannabis in Canada, in terms of the public companies trying to make revenue for their shareholders, do you think it lies more on the THC side, more on the CBD side, or will it continue to be a hybrid across, wellness, recreational, etc.?
No, that's a great question. Just a good example. UK is a great example where they've actually changed the rules since you've been there in 2019. And so while they were allowing CBD to be on shelves, they weren't legally there. And they're now under the Novel Foods Act in the UK, which actually is very similar to our NHP regulations. And so since of April of 2021, there's a lot of CBD products cleaned up there in the UK, because you now have to go through a different process to have approval based on the types of claims you want. So while CBD is still there, it is more regulated than it's been, which I hope will be exactly what happens in Canada and other jurisdictions. To your point on where the future lies, I do believe that it really depends on where the industry goes. But wellness would seem to be the much larger opportunity, because the biggest occasion for CBD is in that wellness space, right? And those occasions just really outnumber the occasions where THC is involved. Having fun with your friends and chilling out and mellowing out, and there is some self-medication, but also there's the hybrid version, right, where there's a little bit of THC and a little bit of CBD. And so I do think that it'll evolve together, and I do think that the best part of what's happened, and we can say that Canada was, slow to regulate and kept them together, but it's really done what it set out to do, which was to introduce it safely, keep it out of the hands of children, and ensure that the proceeds weren't going to organized crime. But by legalizing it, it's to enable people to start doing research, right? To actually start to put real facts behind the things that are working for you, right? And so I think that the Canadian industry and the global industry has a chance now with the legalization to really invest in understanding the benefits of CBD and a lot of other cannabinoids that are in the plant, right? And I think that in itself, I think, will help not reduce the stigma, right, and not make it feel like, oh, you're just making this up, right? And I think that's what's great. I think that's the best part of this whole thing, is it's not going to be feeling like it's some side hustle, so to speak, that has genuine facts and science behind it.
Sure. So, Dale, if I wanted to apply for a microcultivation license, would Deloitte help me through that process? Is that something
we sure would. We sure would. We'd help you get set up. We'd help you, complete the application process. But more importantly, we'd actually help you with depending on your business plan. We'd help you with your business plan. We'd help you with setting up your operations so that they're, compliant, but also that they're efficient, right? So the licensing part is really one part now. As the industry's evolved, understanding the role and what you want to do in the industry, like, do you want to create your own products? Do you want to, sell to someone else? All of that stuff is starting to get much more defined, and I think that's where the expertise, comes in. It's really the licensing and application is really part of it. Understanding where you want to go and why you're doing it, and how to do it so that you're doing it efficiently and effectively and able to make money on it is, I think, what the biggest benefit of working with us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to say that I'm going to proceed to the next step in that regard and get an understanding of how that engagement works, because I do want to achieve a microcultivation license, because I want to provide an experience locally to prescription cannabis consumers where I can, work with their medical practitioner to understand what would be the best sort of remedy for them, because as my understanding is correct, microcultivation gives you the right to sell to either an LP or directly to a medically prescribed customer. Is that correct?
That's correct, and there's rules around that, but that's correct. That there's an opportunity for you to grow for patients. That's exactly correct.
Well, that's what I'm interested in doing. So then let's, if you're open to it, if Deloitte's open to it, I'd love to make this whole thing part of a future segment that we could sort of film little bits and pieces of the whole process.
That would be great. And I think we'd have our team of experts, sit with you early on and talk about, what you exactly want to do and the roadmap it out for you. And then from there we can, work with you side by side. And that's where we get the most, where we get to help people, bring their passion or their vision to life. That's what it's all about. That's the fun part, right? And so I love that you have a vision for what you want to do, and clearly you're passionate about it because it's something that has helped you, and we see that quite a bit, and understanding that will help us figure out the right roadmap for you and your business.
Yeah, that's great, Dale. Well, we're going to do that. I have friends who are addicted to opiates through medical processes, and I talk to them and I say, you know what? You could use CBD to get you away from that. Instead, they're on these alternative opiates that nonetheless perpetuate the addiction. And from all of this reading I've done about CBD, it's a helpful tool in the arsenal of weaning somebody off of opiate addictions. That's just one of the many areas where I have a direct connection to people who I can help by growing CBD myself. So this is now very exciting to me. Dale, we could go on for hours, but this is supposed to just be an interview, so I'm going to leave it here for now. We'll take this conversation off camera, and I thank you very much for your time, and thanks for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me, and I can't wait to spend more time with you and to learn more and to see what happens from here. So thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
So you've been thinking about getting a micro cultivator license?
Why, yes, I have. I've actually been looking into it for a long time.
That's a real mouthful. They should call it something else.
How about an MC license?
Micro cultivator process.
Micro cultivation licensing sales and processing permit. How about that? MCLPPLMCCP.
I bet you can't do that again.
We got ourselves a whole new
smokes.
language.
Okay,
here.
so what's involved to get that license?
Well, you have to apply for license.
Okay, have you applied?
No.
Are you going to?
Yes.
Who would you seek out in something
well,
like that?
Obviously Dale Cooper and his crew are going to help me out. Yeah.
He seems qualified.
Well, I would say they're super qualified. They've helped over 100 companies and entities get licensed in this country with various types of licensing. They're experts in the realm. They have a whole range of consultants to bring on from different licensed producers who can tell you what you need to build. Can you build in the area you're in? Have you got the right site? Like, you can't be this close to a school. You can't be that far to a...
And how much quantity does this allow you to produce?
Microcultivation gives you the right to produce, if I'm not mistaken, now I'm going to get this wrong, I think you're allowed to produce...
Like a pound?
A couple of pounds. No, I think you're allowed, I think the square footage is 500 square meters is the maximum size of a licensed microprocessing facility.
Okay, 20
That's
meters
about
by 25 meters.
2,000 square feet roughly.
Right.
And so how much can you produce in that space? That's the question. I mean, that's like saying how long is a piece of spring? Depends who's growing it, what strain are you growing. How long are you going to veg for before you put it on flower?
Now, will you be able to, is this just for not for personal use?
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm going to smoke all that. No, I'm not going to smoke all that.
This is for a little bit of an enterprise. You're thinking about...
It's a revenue stream.
Yeah, revenue stream.
Actually, you know what? My big ambition is to create custom cannabis strains that produce cannabis flower and extracts targeting specific conditions from local patients. So with a microcultivation license, you're allowed to sell your product either to a licensed producer or directly to patients who have been prescribed cannabis. So in other words, in the community, and I want to really target my community, I want to, help people out who, might need a special combination of terpenes and CBD THC ratios.
So you could be sort of like a...
Pied Piper.
Like a sort of a...
Captain and Tennille.
Like a pharmacist. Like a
pharmacist. Chemist.
A
PhD. In philosophy.
Alchemist.
Turning lead into gold.
Why'd you just turn wood into gold?
Well, because I don't know.
I know. You can't. That's the metal thing. That's where I'm going here in the next little while. I think you can't replicate metals, no matter what you can replicate, which seems to be about everything. You can't replicate elements.
Well, you can. They can create diamonds. Diamonds is
Not
carbon.
real diamonds.
Yeah, they're real diamonds.
They're called nickelodeon or something like that.
You're talking about zircons.
That's it.
Nickelodeon. That's a jukebox, isn't it? No, you can. An artificial
Juke?
diamond
Or
and made
juke?
in a laboratory is actually a real diamond. It's carbon. Carbon, 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 carbon. You know what else is carbon? Graphene is carbon.
Where do you get yeah, but graphene's really expensive, I say.
Ah, well, here's the thing. Graphene Manufacturing Group, again, full disclosure, I own a boat road. Just an investor, yes.
That's-
Merely an
there's a big
investor.
difference.
Well, no, we've had Craig on the show, so technically,
Yeah, so what?
well, I'm also covering them from a media perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, Graphene Manufacturing Group, their biggest claim to fame is the production of graphene from natural gas as a feedstock. And that means that they can produce graphene more economically than any other graphene source on the planet, which is why they partnered with the University of Queensland for
Right.
this aluminum ion graphene
Is the CEO
battery.
from Australia?
The CEO is Australian, Craig Nichol. Great guy.
Is he an engineer?
I believe he's an engineer. I'm not versed in his credentials. So gold has also been yearning higher.
Yeah.
And went over $1,900 yesterday briefly.
Yeah.
Currently trading at $1,890 in the front month
Holding
of the futures contract.
very well.
Holding very well. Holding
Well,
very
again,
well.
reflecting the weakness in the U.S. Dollar.
The weakness in the U.S.
See, the
dollar.
Canadian dollar
Canadian dollar,
pushing 83.
80. Two.
Oh, I'm doing it the other way.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah. No, the U.S. dollar is $1.20 Canadian. So it's 80 cents Canadian for the USD. No, USD is where $1 US buys $1.20 Canadian. 80 cents Canadian buys
Okay, here it is.
$1.20
Here it
Canadian
is.
buys $1 USD.
0.8287 Canadian gets one.
Now we're revealing our mathematical lack of prowess. Oh boy. Anyways, so the dollar's up.
I'm looking at the wrong one. It's 120. The U.S. dollar is 120.65, and the Canadian dollar is 0.82. There you go. That's all you got to know.
So anyways, gold going higher, the Canadian dollar higher relative to the USD than it has been in a couple of years, all suggesting that the inflationary pressure of quantitative easing at an unbridled pace in the US, 120 billion a month, is having serious impacts on commodity prices.
Eventually, the chickens
will
come
home
to
roost
their.
in the morning. But yeah, whoa, tangent there. Let's see. So what about our friends at U.S. Copper? U.S. Copper trading at 25 cents despite the jump in the price of copper.
Yeah.
Now that's a little bit unintuitive.
Yeah. You know
counterintuitive.
what. They're cashed up.
Yeah.
They announced that they're going to start a drill program. They didn't
did
say,
announce it.
Well, they haven't announced the date that they're going to start drilling.
Oh.
But one has to believe that
Drilling's going to start.
it's going to start at some point. They're cashed up. They don't have to get permits because they own the land that they're drilling.
Right.
And there's some very big targets on the property. And price of copper is where it is. And they've announced that they've applied for an uplisting which that hasn't been finalized yet, but they've applied for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I was looking at the historical prices of the copper juniors in the last time that the copper futures price was in this range, and the ratio was quite a bit higher. In other words, the dollar value of the average market cap of a junior copper company that had a proven deposit, not necessarily proven, but at least a 43-101 of some merit, was much higher in the last cycle than it is in this cycle. So it looks to me like there's a great deal of skepticism as it pertains
There's
to
still
copper
a
juniors.
lot of. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
But I don't have to say
Did I
no.
take the words right out of your
You took
mouth?
the words right out of my mouth. There's still a lot of skepticism because people will go back and say, well, look, the last time this happened, it all fizzled out.
It did.
But now this time, though, copper is on, I think, on a
Full disclosure, how many shares of U.S. copper do you own?
well, I own shares, and I also own some warrants. You're just talking about shares?
Yeah. Well, no. Any
Well-
interest we want to disclose on the show to reveal to the audience that when we're talking about U.S. copper, we are both conflicted because I bought 100,000 shares last week out of the market. I've got 200,000 options from our old marketing gig with them way back in 2018.
Right.
And so I'm conflicted with U.S. copper, but that's why I bought more shares, even though I have
Right.
options, is because I'm looking at this price and I'm thinking, with 2 billion pounds
I
old 43101 and 2 billion pounds historic non 43101 and a lot of gold, over 1 million ounces of gold. This thing
close
is
to 1 million ounces of gold.
I just felt it was undervalued and I had to own more.
It is, but then the argument's always been California.
Oh, because it's a big green state.
Yeah, well, but look where they are. They're northeast California.
Well, and they're
next to
core is-
Nevada, and next to the Tesla factory.
California
You
is
never know. Elon Musk
California's
might
in-
want to buy this.
Elon Musk. Everybody wants Elon Musk to buy everything. Have you noticed he doesn't really buy much? He
No.
starts it up.
He's
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he took that
He-
boring machine of his and he just started drilling like 12 miles beneath the surface of the earth, looking for molten copper,
Are you-
already smelted, that nobody's ever found before. Could you imagine what that would do to the copper
the
price?
technology is changing so fast. I mean, look
Well,
at that.
that's just it. Like, how soon till you can stick some kind of like probe into the ground to a depth where copper exists in great quantity,
And then you just use it down there.
suck it on up. Well, there's that technology where they basically take copper out of the ground by dissolving it in place and taking the fluid out of the ground. You've heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you call that?
That's called.
What's it called again? Anyways, so obviously we're big
Sublimation?
copper experts. Sublimation. Sublimation.
No, it's called evaporation.
Alteration.
I don't know.
Me either.
We're getting into the area of alchemy. It's a bit of a.
Alchemy. So the copper juniors aren't doing that great, but the gold juniors, on the other hand, like there's a few gold juniors
Yeah.
that have just
Yeah.
seriously skyrocketed.
And I'll tell you what's going to really ignite the copper juniors is when a bigger gold miner buys one.
Buys a copper mine.
And
Remember,
says,
Barrick bought that copper mine
It's-
just before the price collapsed,
yeah,
and that
yeah.
was kind of like,
Oh, it killed
that
a-
was in last cycle.
Killed a lot of appetite.
That would explain a lot of the skepticism on investors' part and piling into
Yeah,
the junior
yeah,
trade
yeah.
just because the futures price is high. First, we need the futures price to stay at this level.
I think it's got to stay here, and I think it's got to start tickling that $5 mark, and then people are going to say, "Holy smokes!
Yeah.
There's been a sea change in
Now
the
it's gonna really rock.
copper world.
Yeah.
Copper.
Copper. What gold juniors do you like? Do you have any that you're watching?
I think right now we're in a kind of a market where if you've got some good property with some good potential drill results on the way,
Yeah.
you can pretty well throw a blanket out there.
Really? Throw a blanket out there.
Yeah, well, that way you'll catch a few.
Oh.
Okay.
Cast a wide net.
Cast
kind
a.
of thing.
Well, I said throw a blanket. That's a damn big blanket.
Throw a blanket on it sounds
Yeah.
like throw a wet blanket on it, snuff it
Yeah,
out.
snuff out the.
There's mixed metaphors here, Edward.
Okay.
Details, eh?
I think that. It looks like the commodities are, the juniors are starting to move,
Yeah, well, let's hope
but it's
so.
taking a while.
It's taken a while. It has taken a while. Anyways, next week we've got a few surprise guests. I don't know who they are yet. Even I'll be surprised. We fully expect to see a lot more volatility in Bitcoin USD, and Ethereum, I think, is the crypto to own for the long term.
It is, eh?
People were asking. Actually, and now we're going to take some questions from the audience. One person asked if someone like Goldman's has the power to increase the share price of a company by simply saying it's a good buy based on some metrics, and they themselves are an investment company, does that not in and of itself constitute a kind of manipulation as they benefit from their own analysis? Well, what do we say to that, Edward? Duh!
Well,
Remember when Goldman Sachs came out and said that oil is going to be going to $140.
right.
And at the time it was $90, and within 1 week it touched $142, and that was the all-time high for the cycle. Now, is that not a blatant market manipulation? Unprosecuted,
Yeah,
not even
yeah.
covered by the mainstream media.
I don't think it happened exactly like the way we recall things because, you know, there's this, there's that, there's that.
Well, I remember it vividly because I've written 10 articles on it. They all get sort of subdued in the Google search engine, even though like the charts are there. It's all a matter of the public record, and it's like there's a conspiracy afoot to just keep that kind of commentary suppressed.
Yeah.
Because I'm not on the board of any of the 6 major media firms that control 90% of the global discourse in financials.
Right.
So, you know, yeah, does Goldman Sachs blatantly manipulate stocks? If I said yes, that would constitute defamation. So I'm not even going to go there.
No, you can't. You can't.
I'm not going to go there.
Look.
Yeah, they've got big, deeper pockets than I do.
You know, they say the stock market was made for fools and their money to part ways.
Well, that must be why we spend so much time in it.
Well, you know, look, if you don't follow the rules of the stock, like Buffett, look at Buffett's not affiliated with it. He did it on his own. He figured it out, right? He figured it out with
I didn't get the call to buy $5 billion worth of Goldman Sachs warrants in the financial crisis. Did you get that call?
Well, and then to your point, even though you may look like you got it all figured out in your Goldman Sachs, they still needed $5 billion when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
So everything looks great and looks like, oh, they're making all the money.
Did they
but
really
if the shit
need
hits,
the money? Or did they just do that as a way to demonstrate, you know what, we need to shore up our credibility in the face of this financial crisis. Let's call Warren and get him to buy 5 billion warrants. We'll make a sweetheart deal. And that way, everybody in the market will go, well, if Warren Buffett is investing $5 billion in Goldman Sachs during the financial crisis,
there's a million reasons.
There's no crisis. It's all gobbledygook, hogwash, smoke and mirrors.
Well, what do they say? They say when your neighbor's out of work, it's a recession. When you're out of work, it's a depression.
Is that how it goes?
Well, yeah. You know, even though we look at things statistically, we can't help but we have to look at things
objectively.
How do they affect you? You know,
personally.
You have to kind of, you know.
Well, true that. I mean, I remember when after the financial crisis set in, there was a time where I was quite poor. Briefly, because I was all in on the mining industry, and it cleaned
How was your timing?
me out.
How was your timing?
My timing was horrible because at first I could not believe that the gold price had been manipulated downward by some major financial institution coming out in April of 2011 on the front page. Was it the front page of the Wall Street Journal? No, I don't think it was the front page of the business section of the Wall Street Journal. Short gold, bold letters, exclamation point. Jeff Curry was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal saying short gold, and gold promptly crashed down to its all-time low in the last 10 years, which was just under $1,100. No, $1,090 or something.
Yeah.
Just under. Yeah.
Well, but it's come back.
It's come back, and we haven't heard a peep out of
you know
Goldman
what?
Sachs.
That's my biggest beef. Unless you buy an Amazon and you move, But when you're doing it with a commodity, these commodities just don't go up. Like to be a perennial bull in gold is as I've learned the hard way.
Not like a perennial bullshitter.
Like
no, that's a promoter.
Yeah, that's it. But you can't.
Does.
You know, the trends change. Trends change. There's a time to be in gold.
Seasons change.
You know, like a lot of these junior copper, they've awakened, but they haven't had spectacular moves yet. I predict that'll happen because I think copper will keep moving, and that'll make people go, whoa, we got to get into some copper. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap today, Edward. That's about all we have to say.
Right, wrap it.
Droned on long enough about this, that, and the other thing, and we'll be back next week with another fantastic show live from Red Dog Farm. It's Edward Polsky Ogorki Molesky and myself. What's my name?
James West.
Ow!
The one and only.
Later, people. Thank you for watching.